here. Okay, aloha everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're here with Tanya, Yamanaka, Aynessazian, and Allison of the Hydroponic Hut to talk a little bit about rat lungworm. Before we do that, I'm just going to share a couple of resources with you. As a reminder, my name is Kuʻulei, and I'm running for District 3 House Representative. Tanya is running for District 2 Senate. Is that correct, Tanya?
That is correct.
And
District 2.
as part of our District 2, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. And as part of our campaign efforts and endeavors, and also in general life, Tanya and I show up as much as we can in our own communities. I'm from the Keaukaha Panaeva area, but District 3 associates me with Puna. And Tanya is of the Puna area currently. And so we are so excited for the opportunity to run for office, aka apply for the job of serving you all year long. We want to be in office and at the Capitol for 4 months out of the year. We don't necessarily love the idea of that, but we certainly want the job so that we can do it well. But we're most excited about the 8 months that follow those 4 months of community engagement and community service. And this is one way that we plan to do that. So I'm going to share my screen here to just share with you folks a little bit of what we've created thus far. So Tanya and I created this mechanism to support constituents in a way that extends beyond our legislative duties in the capital, but really looking at supporting our constituents directly without any kind of money outside of our efforts and time. And so we have this community concerns folder. And this is available to everyone at tinyurl.com/engage-hi. I put that link in the chat. You can go to that link and it'll take you to this community concerns folder. We have so far a civic education folder and a Puna folder. We also have a resources doc and a community concerns doc. So what Tanya and I are doing is when we're doing outreach and constituents have concerns, we're inviting folks to fill out this community concerns document. And essentially folks are able to put their, to have a place to share their location and what the issue is. They describe their personal issues. They describe systemic failures, like what part of the issue relates to a law or a bill or an administrative process or whatever it is that is systemic. And then we look into what education the community needs around that issue, what actions are needed, and what's the best path to mobilize. And then we create mobilization materials, like maybe the flyer that led you to our time together today. And so this is a very real example of what we plan to do, continuing in our campaign efforts, and also continuing if we're elected. We'll have this will be our primary job, just to serve you. So we're most excited again about that. But so looking at today's rat lungworm issue, we have I just want to show you what you folks don't, this is our internal folder, but I want to show you what that I confirmed that we don't have any sensitive information on this that I'm sharing here because you're not able to click these links here. But so when when Allison came to us with this rat lungworm issue, or when Tanya and Allison got together on that, Allison went ahead and filled out this form. She put her information here, and or Tanya and I filled out this form based on that. We looked at some of the guidelines and some of the systemic failures that occurred. We also looked at some HRS, some Hawaii revised statutes and laws that relate to that. And also we talked about when we could get together on a Zoom. When can we bring this situation to the public? When can we talk about it? How can we mobilize to do something about it? And since just even creating the flyer and just sharing about this event, from what I understand, made some pressure, put some pressure on our existing representative to do some action. And so we're thankful, and maybe you'll hear more about that today. But anyway, if you go into this public concerns folder, you'll see this community concerns folder. It's shared. You'll see in the Puna folder, we have a rat lungworm folder with some notes that Tanya and I are taking today about today's Zoom. And then we have this PDF here that will largely be our guiding doc through our conversation with Allyson today. We also have in that folder, let's see, in the Puna folder, engage high. We also have some of the documents that we will refer to today.
Yeah.
We also invite you folks to check out within the folder the civic engagement, the civic education folder that we have with some materials that we've shared in the past. And in this resources doc, you'll find a link to our YouTube playlist where this video will be uploaded afterward. So this is the video that we had on water hauling and catchment in the Puna area. We did this a few days ago. And then we had a How the Government Works workshop. We did that a couple of days ago. This is going to also be added to this playlist. So if anyone wants to review this at any time, you can just go to tinyurl.com/engagehigh and go to the resources doc, and the link will be just right there. So I'm going to stop my yapping so we can actually talk about Rat Lungworm. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Tanya, so that you can do our introductions and we can get on with it. Thank you folks so much.
Mahalo, Kuʻulei, for showing everyone the behind the scenes of what we're doing here to try to organize all the various issues that both Kuʻulei's district, which goes from Panaeva and Keawekane all the way up to Fern Acres, so that you guys can see we're trying to be as organized as possible so we can take care of the issues that are coming up during these town halls. And so thank you, Allyson. Her and her husband are known as the Als. They're community members and founders of the Hydroponic Hut. This is an example of someone who I've only known Allyson in person since the HPP town hall, just so only like 10 days. But when you meet someone who is electric and you know, she saw that we had a food insecurity problem, and what did she do? She learned how to grow food, and then she's growing food. And then you know, this horrible experience with rat lungworm, which actually threatens our local food supply. So there's a lot of different things that come into play here. Again, I also want to point out that someone running for office, Eileen O'Hara, is on the call as well. And so I'm happy to see that there's multi-level people running for office who are engaged in this issue, because it's going to take a lot of different people to correct all the things that need to be tightened, is the way I'll put it for now. So welcome, Allyson. Thank you for being here. Did you want to add anything to your bio? That was a really quick introduction for you.
No, mahalo for having me. And I really appreciate everybody who's in the room and the people that are going to be watching this and sharing this. As Tanya said, Allen and I started Hydroponic Hut, the food movement, actually on Wednesday will be 3 years ago. So it was started out with something that I just thought was going to be, I don't know, I really didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And now we've trained over 920 people how to grow their own food out of our backyard. And we're continue to climb in that area. Rat lungworm was never my lane. My lane was food insecurity. Our lane has been food insecurity. But we do teach rat lungworm in our class. It's very important. I learned it from Big Island Invasive Species from Franny Brewer, and we felt it was a very important component of our class, because you can't grow food without talking about rat lungworm when you're here in Hawaii. There's a lot of people that are on this webinar that have been in this rat lungworm space for a long time, for over a decade. I'm new to this rat lungworm space, but after having Allen get infected and what has happened, I really feel like I need to show my voice and give my experience, give Allen's experience, so people are aware and know. And I've already seen people talking about it on Facebook. People are talking about it more. But I'd really like to get back to my lane, which is food insecurity. But there's a lot of people that have been in this space for a long time that are a little bit tired of, you know, and I'm like this new voice, I'm this new light of hope for them. I'm very articulate in the way I speak. I believe that I'm very motivating to people. So I hope to enhance this space and just enhance what these people have already been doing. Before I speak, I think I need a little disclaimer. I'm very raw and feel very real, and I'm very transparent. I speak the truth, but I want to make sure that nothing that I say gets misconstrued because of the terminology and the wording that I use. So I'm going to read something off of here. So everything I'm going to share today is based on my personal experience, my observations, medical records, audio recordings, emails, documentations that Allen and I have collected over the past several months. The audio recordings, a lot of people are wondering how those audio recordings started. The audio recordings started when Allen first went into the ER. We went in there on a Friday in the morning, and it was so busy in there, they wouldn't let me go in the back because Allen was actually in a hallway. So I had to sit outside. I didn't get to see Allen until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I didn't know what was going on with him. So I said, Allen, start recording with your voice recorder. So that's how we started recording, so I could hear what these doctors are saying to him. So that's how that all got started. And everything is going to be based on my opinions, my conclusions, and everything that I personally witnessed and documented myself. There are multiple investigations currently going on right now, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes in the investigations. I don't want to have any words that I was trying to influence these investigations. I just want to say that this is all coming from me, my personal raw experience. I use words like gross negligence, failure, gaslighting, things like that. That's language that just comes from me. And again, it's not meant to imply anything. Everybody can base their own opinions, their own conclusions, based on the facts and documents that they're going to do on their own. Today, I'm not going to be naming any individual physicians or any doctors or any nurses. My purpose is not to publicly target those people yet. Any legal matters involving these specific people are going to be handled in the appropriate ways and through the appropriate processes. My focus today is going to be on the systems, the policies, the changes that I believe are needed to better help the patients that are going through those hospital doors today, not just on rat lungworm, but on other issues. My purpose today is not to attack the hospital, the doctors, or the Department of Health. My purpose is to tell our story and as honestly as I can and explain why I believe that these changes are needed. And I'm going to invite the community to help us make those changes. I truly believe that our Hilo Benioff Medical Center can become a hospital that every member in our community feels comfortable and proud of. I believe that the Department of Health can be stronger partner with the patients and the hospital staff. And I believe that the doctors and the nurses want to provide the very best care that they can. And my hope is that our story becomes a catalyst for truth, transparency, accountability, and positive change. That is why I am here today.
Thank you so much, Allison. That's, I think, why we're all here today, and we're excited to hear your story. So why don't we start with truth? Tell us what happened.
So Allen got sick. Allen got sick with which we know was rat lungworm, but at the time we didn't know it was rat lungworm. We know that it came from a community potluck on a Sunday. Allen went into the ER on a Friday. And, there's a difference on when people say when you get affected and when you start feeling the effects. It can happen from 1 day to 14 days or even longer where you feel the effects of rat lungworm. So Allen got infected on that Sunday. We know that he got infected that potluck because the way we were eating, we weren't eating out. We were doing this like food challenge. We also do know that another person got sick with rat lungworm as well. And they let us know. I don't know of anybody else. So that's where we concluded that it came from there. Well, that Monday and Tuesday, Allen started feeling fluish. By Wednesday, he said, Allison, we got bed bugs and I feel this itchiness. Like I feel like I'm getting bit by bed bugs. And I'm like, I don't feel anything. The reason why I want to tell you this is because of the signs and symptoms. And so that if you feel this, that you know. At that time, there was Pele's glass. It was falling from the air. And if you walked around outside, you would get these little shards of glass in your feet. And so that's one thing that Allen described. He goes, it feels like little shards of glass all over me. I'm like, okay, this was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I was like, Allen, why don't we go to the hospital? You're still not feeling good. And he's like, no, I'm fine. We won't go to the hospital. Well, come Friday, I went to the gym. Allen calls me and he says, we need to go to the hospital. I'm having chest pains. Now, that's a surefire way to get a middle-aged man to go to the hospital as they start having chest pains, which we know was probably anxiety from him being sick. So we go to the hospital at 8 a.m. Or 8:15 a.m. And Allen goes in there with chest pains, which they bring him right to the back. I wasn't allowed to be back there. He was back there with the ER doctor, and they saw him in a lot of pain. They kind of instantly gave him morphine, which is kind of crazy to give to a patient right away. They instantly gave him morphine, and the doctor was asking him if he has water catchment, if he eats raw foods, things like that, all the probing questions that you would ask someone if they were going in for rat lungworm. And then he told Allen, he said, we need to do a spinal tap on you. He said, I think you have rat lungworm. The only way to rule out rat lungworm is to do a spinal tap. Now, they had to convince Allen to do this because Allen's medical, he knows what a spinal tap involves. It's a lumbar puncture where they put a needle up into your spine to get out the spinal fluid. And that's where they're going to look at your eosinophil levels. And what they should be doing, according to the Department of Health, is sending that fluid to Oahu, because that's the only place that they can definitively say you have rat lungworm. When they did the test on Allen, Allen's eosinophil levels were at 6%. And we believe it's because we caught this early. It wasn't 2 weeks later, we caught it early. So what we know now is they saw that eosinophil level, said that it wasn't 10%, and said he did not have rat lungworm. That ER doctor never sent that spinal fluid off to the Department of Health. According to our infectious disease law, HRS 325, if you have a suspicion, just a suspicion of an infectious disease, you're supposed to notify the Department of Health. And in this case, you're supposed to send that spinal fluid off to the Department of Health. And that didn't happen. The one thing that did happen, the other doctor that ended up coming on board that admitted Allen in, they did a blood test for leptospirosis. Now, they took that blood test immediately and sent it over to the Department of Health and notified the Department of Health. So some questions in our mind is, why leptospirosis and not rat lungworm? They're both infectious diseases. So nonetheless, Allen gets admitted into the hospital, and they tell us that the one doctor, this woman, she says, I'm not going to administer any steroids, because steroids and albendazole are the number one thing that you're supposed to do when somebody has rat lungworm. And even according to the Department of Health on their website, they say that if you have a suspicion and you highly suspect this, based on, the symptoms that Allen had, that you go ahead and start treatment, even though you're waiting for those test results to come back from Oahu. You go ahead and start treatment, because steroids and albendazole will not hurt you if you don't have rat lungworm. So I want that to be clear. The earlier you get treatment with this disease, the less you're going to have lifelong neurological damages. In fact, the window is 2 weeks. If you get treatment within 2 weeks, then the likelihood that you're not going to have lifelong neurological damages is a lot better for you. So they said they were not going to give him steroids. The doctor, she said, if he doesn't get better by Monday, then we'll go ahead and give him steroids. Meanwhile, I'm on Facebook, saying, Allen's sick in the hospital, and everybody's shooting back at me. It's rat lungworm, Allison, it's rat lungworm. And I'm like, no, it's not rat lungworm. 100%. The hospital told me. They tested up and down. I didn't know what up and down testing was, right, at the time. And they said that they had tested for him and he doesn't have it. So then, I'm going in the hospital. Are you sure it's not rat lungworm? Gold standard of testing. Plus, they said, Allen doesn't have sensitivity to light. Allen doesn't have a headache. But even though he had the skin thing where he couldn't be touched on his skin and stuff like that. And I just want people to know, even though there may be 5 levels of symptoms that you have, if you have 3 of the 5, I think the arrows point more towards rat lungworm, right? So they were telling us that, well, he's not sensitive to light. You don't have to have all the 5 things. But the one thing that everyone that I've spoken to has in common is that skin. It's not a tingly skin, which the Department of Health is claiming it's tingly, or at least that's what they say. I know that we're working on getting that changed. It's not a tingly skin. It's a burning sensation. It's a shards of glass. It's like you've been sunburned so bad it has you have blisters on you. So I said it to the doctors over and over again. I said it to the nurses. He has rat lungworm. No, he doesn't. So come Monday, we're like, okay, Allen's going to get on steroids. No, we're not going to put him on steroids. We're going to do all these tests on him. a million blood draws, so many blood draws. I can't even count how many blood draws he has. Ultrasounds, MRIs, CT scans, everything that they did. They even on that Friday, that doctor, the woman doctor, was talking about doing a muscle biopsy on my husband's thigh because they wanted to figure out what it was. And here I am sitting back going, what's wrong with Allen? Like, I'm going to try not to cry right now, but I'm like watching my husband and he's like shaking. His eyes are going back and forth. He's just on morphine and oxy, morphine, oxy, every 2 hours, morphine, oxy. And so they said, okay, we're going to do this muscle biopsy in his thigh. So come Wednesday, they do this muscle biopsy on Allen's thigh, which was a completely unnecessary surgery. Had they just turned in his spinal fluid, they would have known it was rat lungworm because the PCR test, it tests for DNA. So it will test for even the slightest amount of DNA in, it's the gold standard for testing. So he gets that on Wednesday. And then I'm like, okay, we're going through all this. They're still doing all this stuff. And I'm like, by the time Friday came around, I was being talked to by so many people like, Allison, you need to get him on the medication. So then I went in there and I said to the doctor, and I had it, stacks of paper and research that I've been doing. I said, I want to put Allen on steroids. And the doctor's like, no, we don't need to do that. We'll do that Monday if we need. I said, no, I want you to put him on steroids right now. And the exact words from the doctor, she goes, well, we could try a dose and, it can't hurt, right? So she tries a dose. He gets that on Friday. I come back on Saturday. And Allen, at this point, Allen was twitching. And I can't even show you. His arms were curling up and he was twitching. And he couldn't look back and he couldn't keep his eyes straight back and forth. They kept going back and forth. And so the next day, because I'm watching him really closely, I see the twitching go less. And I was like, it's working. I'm like, the steroids are working. It wasn't like an extreme amount, but it was enough that I noticed. I said, it's working. So that day, that same doctor that I had met before, so there's a man and a woman. So this other doctor comes in and I said, you need to put him you need to raise his steroids level. And I looked up to 10 milligrams and the 10 milligrams at night. I said, you need to put him on that medication and you need to put him on albendazole. And at this point, the doctor's telling me, well, Allen doesn't have rat lungworm. And I said, I don't care. And then he was worried about, it's called steroid psychosis, where if you put people on too high a level of steroids, they start kind of freaking out and seeing weird things and stuff. So I reassured that doctor. I said, listen, let's put him on a higher dose. And he was telling me, oh, we're going to lower the dose. No. And I said, listen, if you don't do that, I said, I want you to put in his chart that you refuse to do that. So you know what the doctor did? They put him on a higher level of steroids and they started him on albendazole that Saturday. So then I was like, great, he's getting treatment for rat lungworm. And I was convinced it was rat lungworm at this point. So then Sunday comes around and I was like, okay, we need to get another spinal tap. Looked on the Department of Health. The first spinal tap can come back negative if you're looking just for eosinophil levels. So they went ahead and that was like pulling teeth trying to get him another spinal tap. The spinal tap didn't happen until that Wednesday. So that Wednesday, Allen got the spinal tap. And I'm sorry, I want to back up. Allen finally got steroids on the 13th day since his infection. So since he was exposed to it the 13th day. So I feel like we got right in the window, but at the very end. If I would waited for the hospital to take charge, and this is all these people that are out there advocating for your loved ones when they're in there in the emergency room, you are the one who can make the changes. You are the ones who can do the research and get the doctors to make the changes. And like I said, if they refuse to do that, tell them you want it charted that they refuse to listen to you. So Allen gets the spinal tap on that Wednesday. And they didn't even need to send it off to the Department of Health at this point because Allen's eosinophil levels were at 33%. Now, mind you, where they call it rat lungworm is 10%. He was now at 33%. Now, this was after 4 days of heavy duty steroids, 20 milligrams a day. So according to AI, he was more like 50, 60, maybe even 70% eosinophil levels. Allen was a really, really harsh infected person. So that night, I end up going home and I didn't even know this. Allen called me and he said, are you home? And I said, no, I'm not home yet. So he called me and I got home because he didn't want to tell me while I was in the car. And he says, Allison, he says, I have rat lungworm. And honestly, I was pissed. I was so angry, but I was so relieved because I was thinking, okay, baby, we got you on the steroids. We got you on the Benadryl. We're doing the right thing. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I was really thankful that I had done that. I wish I had done it further. I wish I had known the day he went in there, because he wouldn't have all the neurological problems that he has now if we got it taken care of right away. So anyways, so we go ahead and now he's got rat lungworm. So he goes to, I leave the hospital. I'm sorry, I had already left the hospital. So that night, I prepared to go into the hospital that next morning. And I saw I had a text on my phone. And this is where I'm going to get into. It's not just rat lungworm problem with this hospital. There are other things wrong with this hospital. And I've heard them from other people around the community about the care that they get in the hospital. And I'm going to tell you an example of the care that Allen got in the hospital. So Allen, that night, earlier that day, before he got the test, Allen almost fell. He had a walker because he was walking with the walker, and he almost fell. And even the person in the room next to us, the wife, tried to catch Allen. And so I was like, oh my gosh, Allen almost fell. So I called the nurse in. I said, listen, Allen almost fell. I want you to put in his chart that Allen almost fell, so the night nurses know when I leave to put an alarm on Allen's bed, so that whenever he gets up, the alarm goes off and the nurses come in. It's a very standard thing that they do in the hospital. So that nurse never charted it. So the night nurse never knew that Allen almost fell. So that night that we had found out Allen got rat lungworm, I got a text in my phone, and it said something to the effect of, Allison, I've fallen when I went to go to the bathroom, and they're taking me for an emergency CT scan because my blood level, my blood pressure was 96/66. So what happened was, in the middle of the night, Allen got up, he went to go to the bathroom, and he's not sure if he passed out or what happened, but his legs went out for him. He went falling, crashing down, hit a chair on his way down, and the nurses heard all this happening, came running into the room, and Allen was on the ground. They took his, which was good, they took his blood pressure while he was on the ground and took him for an emergency CT scan. So he went down to get an emergency CT scan. Allen gets the CT scan, and what does the hospital do? They take him upstairs and they put him in his bed and say, go to bed. Nobody ever checked on Allen after that happened. And when you have a head fall, you should be checked on every 15 minutes, doing vitals, at least for that first hour, right? So they didn't do that. So then I get this text at like 4 a.m. that this had happened to Allen. So sure enough, I'm rushing to the hospital, pouring rain. I don't know if nobody knows, in March, it was just pouring absolute rain. And I'm like talking to my friend on the phone, like trying not to get in an accident. I run into the hospital, and you can hear my feet banging on the ground. I'm bang, 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 bang. And I see Allen, and obviously he's okay, right? And I'm just grasping. And from there on, I said, I am never leaving you. Not for a moment. I am not going home. And from that moment on, I did not leave that hospital without having a friend come and stay during the day for a couple hours so I can take care of things at home. Or I spent the night at the hospital. I told the doctors I'm spending the night I was crouched in Allen's bed, sleeping with him in the hospital. It was not comfortable, but I wasn't going to leave him, right? So then this happens. The next day I go to the doctor, or the nurse. I said, hey, why didn't you chart this? We talked about this. And the nurse said, I forgot. And here's what I'm going to say. I witness those nurses in there every single day, and I'm not placing blame on everybody. But the thing is, the doctors come in for 5 minutes a day. It's the nurses that are helping you. The nurses are so overloaded in our hospital. They have so many patients. You know, there is fault for this nurse not saying this and not charting in his chart after I had asked him to. And obviously that wouldn't have happened to Allen had he not done this. But the nurses are so overloaded there, they just can't. So, you know, they need more nurses. They need more people, because I watch those guys just barely being able to take care of the patients that they can. So what I want to say and continue on, Allen ended up spending 17 days in the hospital there. He ended up getting discharged. When we found out that he had rat lungworm that next day, the doctors that were taking care of Allen disappeared. Like cockroaches, when you turn on the light, they were all gone. I was like, where's the doctors that's been taking care of Allen the whole week? And they said, oh, well, we rotate doctors on a regular basis. I said, no, you don't. We've had the same doctors the entire week. Why, now that we find out that he's got rat lungworm, does this happen? So I asked to call in the doctor that had been working with us the whole time. And I asked her, I said, why did this happen? How could this have happened? Some of the excuses she told me was, we have bad computer systems and there's not some automatic computer system. We've got traveling doctors that don't know about rat lungworm, don't know about what to do, don't know to call the Department of Health. To me, excuses that are not, valid excuses. Including the doctor that came in at the end. We're going to call him the cleaner, because he was a very hardcore doctor, and really just wanted to I don't know, clean up the mess kind of thing. So this doctor ended up putting on, had never seen a rat lungworm patient before, or had only seen one in his career, was from LA, not even from our community. And that's another thing I want to talk about. We got traveling doctors and traveling nurses who are not invested in our community. Why are we not growing our own nurses and our own doctors? And I know a lot of people say that it's because people don't want to live in Hawaii, and I just don't even believe that, because everybody wants to live in Hawaii. It's the most amazing place on earth, right? And I just think it's, maybe they're not paying enough. And from what I was told in the hospital, it's the nurses, traveling nurses get paid less or something like that. So if it's a money thing, money things can be fixed. But I would like to see people that are invested in our community helping, the patients that are in there. That particular doctor didn't give Allen enough steroids, weaned him off of his pain meds. Allen ended up going back into the hospital again because about 12 days later, because he was going blind in his right and his left eye. Come to find out, because we went to a specialist ophthalmologist, it was because he was weaned off steroids too quickly. So I got this doctor who doesn't know about rat lungworm giving the prescriptions to my doctor, which just doesn't make any sense to me. And this has happened. When we went back into the hospital, again, I'm recording everything. We went back in the hospital. One of the nurses had said to us, I've never done so many lumbar punctures in my career. Another nurse has said to us, again on recording, I've seen so many rat lungworm patients every single month in here. So that does not correspond with the accounted amount that we have in the state of Hawaii. We only have 3 cases last year in the state of Hawaii. It's just mathematically impossible to be the highest rate of this disease in our Puna district and have only 3 cases. So it makes me, when those nurses said those things, it makes me say they're not reporting this. And based on what happened to Allen, I know they're obviously didn't report it for Allen. Again, when we were in there, there was another nurse that said on recording that there were 2 other patients in the hospital at the time we were in there that had rat lungworm. Where Allen is today, he's recovering. We believe we got him in that 2-week window. He has issues. I think people have seen a video where he saw what he thinks is worms in his eyes. We're reaching out with our doctors and neurologists, and we've got appointments, and we're getting those things looked at. We're taking a stronger level on the psychological. This has been very psychologically damaging to Allen, and we're moving forward. But Allen really wants to be the poster guy to let people know that you can get rat lungworm and you can survive it, but you got to get treatment right away. You got to get within that 2-week window. Allen's working really hard with physical therapy and things that he's doing. And I just don't want to scare the community. I don't want people not eating produce or not doing anything like that. You just need to wash and inspect your produce. You just need to follow proper protocols. And if you think you have rat lungworm, go into the hospital, call the Department of Health yourself, and advocate for yourself and your loved ones. And this is something that happened to us, and we lived it. And I just wanted to at least share that background story with you guys.
Thanks, Allison. That was super helpful. Do you want to take any questions at this point, or do we want to keep going?
Oh, let's just keep going.
Okay. I do want to say that I think one of the reasons that your story was so compelling for me also is because the results that Allen has experienced would not have been for your patient advocacy. And that is something that I've seen because I worked at the adult daycare in Hilo for 10 years. And so people would be coming into the adult daycare many times from a fall or something that happened to their loved one who was older. And so if people are shy, or they think that the doctors know everything, or we're culturally and socially trained to not necessarily question doctors, sometimes even nurses. And this is like really important for people to understand that we have to get comfortable knowing what to ask and to ask for it, and it just in order to be good patient advocates, because we want, at some point in your life, you are going to be advocating for someone else, or you're going to need someone to advocate for you. And this is a skill, because we are not taught how to do this. The healthcare world is not made for people to take time with us, right? And to sit us down and explain things to us. It's very confusing. I just know this from when, with my mom and dad, we're both passed now. It can be very intimidating, even for people who know how to ask questions. And so this is a really important thing. I was able to witness this in my partner, because she was watching her father die a couple of years ago. And when I saw how she was a patient advocate, I knew that that's the kind of person that I need to learn how to be for everybody. You know what I mean? Not just when it's your kid, but for anybody, like community level. Like, we need to know how to advocate for things for people that we love and anybody in our community. So thank you for being a really good example of that, because that's a huge piece of this.
And just so everybody knows, I was not in there screaming or yelling. I was extremely nice to everybody. I was listening to everybody. In fact, Alan and I brought in produce, and I gave produce to the guy in radiology. Every single doctor got produce, and they were all talking about, we were very, very nice. Even after we found out he had rat lungworm, I didn't go around screaming or doing anything. We just wanted to just get the care that we need to get.
Right. And you need to do this, not just at the ER and with those doctors. You need to do it, obviously. I know I have mistakes happen all the time for me with my insurance. And so that's another thing. You're always trying to advocate for yourself. So this is a skill set. It should be something that's taught. Allison, you could teach the class, I swear to God. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. You said you were about truth and transparency. Let's talk about transparency. So how do we know that this is all the things that happen? Tell us about your documentation and that kind of thing, so that, you're not asking people like me to just believe you. You've got receipts. So let's talk.
And I do have receipts. I have audio recordings. I have medical records. I have emails. I have timelines. I have Department of Health communications. I have hospital correspondence. I have a lot of correspondence. Now, I haven't put all those correspondence out there because I really want these investigations that are going on in the background to go through before I just start blasting everything out. I also don't want to have these recordings of these people saying these things, because I really believe that it's going to put a lot of fear and distrust. And I want to turn this around. I want this to turn in, and Alan wants to turn this into a really beautiful, nice, sweet lemonade, that we take lemons and we turn it into lemonade, not place blame or point blame on anybody, but just recognize something has happened. All right, we need to change it. And how are we going to do it in a positive way?
All right. So you've got all the receipts you need. So is there anything else you want to say about that?
No, but I just wanted to say that as far as the investigations, I'll go in the next session. I reached out to the governors, and that really didn't work that well. They had told me to call the ombudsmans. So we have an investigation with the ombudsman's office. We have the investigation with CMS, Joint Commission, DCCA, RICO on 7 of the doctors and 1 of the nurses. We have ethics complaints against Dr. Sarah Kimball for some things that she had said to me. CLIA, which investigates the laboratory. We have reached out legislatively to Joy San Buenaventura, and we have other agencies, and we just didn't just file one. We made sure that we went through, or I made sure that I went through and filed with everybody that I possibly could. And I'm sure there's going to be more that's coming out, but at least this has got the ball rolling. And so that it's not just Allen and Allyson saying, here's our documentation. Let's get some outside agencies looking in, not to get people in trouble, but to say, okay, we recognize there's a problem in the systems. Let's figure out how we can change it, right?
So let's, just for people who don't know, so what is an ombudsman?
I don't really know myself, really, to be totally
So
honest
I
with
think
you. I was just
that's a
told,
person
but
who's paid, right, to like mediate between two entities, maybe the patient and the hospital or whoever you're making a complaint about. So there's different ombudsmen, right, for different, like I know there's like an ombudsman in the condo world, right, and in the healthcare world, in the maybe senior living world.
so the ombudsman here, they wouldn't take on everything. What they are taking on is the HRS 325 infectious disease, and why the Department of Health is not enforcing that infectious disease reporting law. So that's the one area, and they were reaching out to Sarah Kimball and the Department of Health to find out why they're not doing it. Now, what they told me, they're like, Allison, we cannot force the Department of Health to do anything. We can just offer suggestions. So we just wanted the investigation so that they offer suggestions.
Wait, didn't they force the Department of Health to report COVID?
And I believe a lot of things happened during COVID that aren't happening here. So that makes me question, why would they happen during COVID, but not happen here?
With other infectious diseases.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that would be a question I would have too. Okay, you also mentioned CMS. Is that what does that stand for?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know.
Okay, I'll look that up.
People who they're just agencies that overlook hospitals and their policies and what they're doing, their procedures and stuff like that. We also did talk with, there's a patient advocate. So if you have a complaint with the hospital, they have a patient advocate. Patient advocate was really nice with me, went over everything, very compassionate with me, went and did it like a 3-week investigation, interviewing all the doctors, the nurses, everything like that. And then she came back with her findings. And her findings was a letter from the Hilo Hospital saying that we found nothing wrong.
Okay. Okay. And then DCCA is like the Department of like Commerce, right?
And
so that's like the business licensing.
That's the licensing, like the doctor's individual licensing. So we have an issue with each of the doctors and how they handle that. Obviously, the doctor who did not turn in the spinal fluid beginning, the nurse who allowed Allen to fall, all the doctors, in fact, should have looked back instead of doing a surgery on Allen's thigh, should have looked back and see, did his spinal fluid make it to the Department of Health, which is required, by law, by the Department of Health guidelines? None of those doctors ever circled back. They just kept trying to figure out what was wrong with Allen, when if they would have circled back, they would have seen, oh, that spinal fluid never made it to the Department of Health. Well, maybe we should look at that before we cut open my husband's thigh and pull out muscle from him to do an unnecessary surgery.
Okay, so you've basically learned to get through all of these different agencies and departments, like the Joint Commission, which addresses hospital complaints. I'm thinking I would have to verify that, but you've had to just figure this all out, basically.
I've totally just had to figure it all out. And like I said, there's been people in this Rat Lungworm, advocacy for a decade, and I'm just figuring it out on my own. And when I deep dived into the HRS 325 and the Department of Health did their own investigation in this, the Department of Health came back and said, we're not going to administer any fines to the doctors for not reporting this. And when I looked into the history of HRS 325, the infectious disease reporting law, there has never been a fine administered to a doctor or the hospital for not following infectious disease law. And I believe it's the way the law is written. So the Department of Health came back to me and said, I'm not going to administer any fines. And here's what happened. I got on the phone with Dr. Sarah Kimball, who's our state epidemiologist. And she told me, Allison, okay, what happened to Allen happened to Allen. I'm glad he's getting better. There's nothing we can do to help out Allen. He goes, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to administer fines to the doctors, because if we don't administer any fine and there is no consequence for not reporting these infectious diseases, then these doctors are going to be like, okay, no worries. I can just do it if I want to or do it if I don't want to. It's kind of like when we used to put on our seatbelt because we got all that click it ticket kind of thing. That got us to put on our seatbelt. Well, if these doctors go, well, I don't want to get in trouble like that last doctor did, then I'm going to go ahead and report this infectious disease, just like we report leptospirosis and everything like that. Dr. Kimball's exact words to me were, I do not want to. I want to just give the doctors more education, which to me is ridiculous because the doctors had already been educated the year prior with the new PCR test. She said, I do not want to ruin, if I administer fines, I do not want to ruin the relationship between the doctors and the Department of Health. And I'm like blown away. I'm like, what about the relationship between the community and the Department of Health? You want to take away the trust between the community and the Department of Health? Start saying that over and over again. Start saying that you didn't say that so I can play that recording, which I don't want to. We don't need to go there. However, that needs to change. So do I believe that these doctors need to be held responsible for not reporting my husband's infectious disease? Absolutely. So I'm trying to go through different avenues with DCCA and other organizations that will probably do something where the Department of Health will not. The other thing is the Hilo Hospital, from what I discovered, is using a 2020 protocol. And that's where they look at eosinophil levels. And it was even on their website that, and it might even still be there today, that they're using a 2020 protocol where they're only looking at eosinophil levels. So I don't even know if this doctor knew to turn in this spinal fluid because it's not even in their protocols, right? Or at least it wasn't at the time. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the hospital to update those protocols and change those protocols, right? So that it says, hey, turn in that PCR test, because obviously the education that the Department of Health gave them last year, and you can see it was July 15th, 2025, they already educated the hospital. I've got that on recording. They already did that. So the hospital chose not to update their protocol, or for whatever reason is just looking at eosinophil levels and not turning in the spinal fluid. That's been an ongoing question that I have for my legislators, for the Department of Health, to find out from the hospital, are they even updating their protocol? Because
and my question would be, we already have precedents for this because they did pivot on the different COVID protocols that came out pretty, in 2020 and 2021 and thereafter. So there's already recent protocols for something that was even more scary, like on a higher level in terms of, the number of people and that were infected. So that doesn't make sense that we can't do it on this one, but that's just my personal comment.
Well, I would like to hear from the Department of Health or some, authority figure that, yeah, the protocol has been changed and you don't have to worry about that guy who's in the ER today. Because I know people have gone in since we've been in and they're getting gaslit. They are getting gaslit on this rat lungworm thing, and we're the epicenter. So it should not be that way.
Okay, so basically that was the section on accountability, because we kind of moved right from transparency into accountability. So thanks, Allison. We jumped right into that. So is there anything else you want to say about holding these guys accountable before we move into the last section here, which is on positive changes that we can make?
Well, again, it's not about getting someone in trouble. I'm not like wanting, I was really upset after all this happened. Like the fact that we knew all this happened and that it's not about getting someone in trouble. It's about having accountability so that positive change can happen later. So that doctor who's in there right now is like, I'm going to turn in that test. I don't want to end up like the last guy. If there's no last guy, then,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yes. So what do you hope, after going through all of this, the last couple of months, pending investigations and any future lawsuits aside, what do you hope comes from all this in response to, the disease itself and how it's diagnosed and treated?
Well, I really hope that the doctors, from going this point forward, any lumbar puncture you do, you're sending that fluid over to the Department of Health. You're calling the Department of Health immediately. I would love for the computer systems to change. So it's just an automatic where the doctor doesn't even need to think about it. It's just an automatic thing. I want to see better education for those doctors. It's not tingly skin. You don't need to have all 5 of these symptoms to be considered rat lungworm. That you need to retest if it doesn't come back rat lungworm. Early recognition and early treatment. I would like to see what's in the Department of Health, literally on their website, being implemented in our hospital, and not just this hospital. I'd like to see it in all the Hawaii hospitals, because this just doesn't happen here. It happens on all the islands. The only thing I can speak from is what happened here in Hilo Hospital. I would also like to see, so right now, the only way to get counted for rat lungworm in the state of Hawaii is to do a spinal tap and get spinal fluid. And a lot of people that I've spoken with have not gone in, or when they went in, they refused the spinal tap because, one, it costs a lot of money. Two, they're putting a needle in your back, right? So a lot of people will shy away from doing that. So what I'd like to see is that test changed, because that's the only way to count a case is from doing that spinal tap, and obviously the fluid getting to the Department of Health, because lots of spinal taps are being done, but I don't think they're making it to the Department of Health. So there's one thing, and I'd like other people to look at this. It's called the KARIS test, K-A-R-I-U-S. Now, when Allen was in the hospital, I asked the doctors about this. I asked the nurses about this. I said, because I was doing research on my own, I said, there's a blood test that we can do. This is a blood test that you can do to find out if you have rat lungworm, and it looks for DNA as well. And I asked them, I said, why can't you do the KARIS test on Allen? And they said, we don't have the kit to do the KARIS test, because this KARIS test, just like the spinal fluid test, has to go to Oahu. This KARIS test has to go to the mainland, because there's only one laboratory that apparently does this KARIS test. And they are epicenter of this disease, the highest rate of this disease in all the United States, and the hot spot from the entire world does not have the KARIS test kit. So I'm asking AI, why do we not have this kit, here? And basically, there's a couple things on there saying that it hasn't been FDA approved. They don't have enough human samples to be able to test this. And AI is telling me, like, wow, what a cool thing it could be if we could get that KARIS test here in Hawaii, because now we can test people via blood, and we could be the running, testing for this, and we could be the launcher, the petri dish that shows that this can be done all over the world, all over the United States and all over the world. This could save lives. This could show us accurate numbers. This could be a test that when somebody is suspicious of rat lungworm, they don't have to get a spinal tap. They can just get a blood test. So I would love all the people out there to start talking about KARIUS, the KARIS test. And let's see how we can get that in the epicenter of the United States, the epicenter of rat lungworm here in the Puna district. That should be here. The lab to take care of it should be here. Or if we need the kit to send it out, let's do that. But I thought that was very interesting that we don't have that test. The other thing I'd like to see is the hospital changes, not just for rat lungworm. From what we experience, there are problems in that hospital. And I'm not a hospital person, right? Like, I don't know how to change a hospital. I just know from layman person going in there that those nurses are overloaded. They're from Tennessee, Iowa, and then nothing wrong with those states, but they're not from here. They don't have it. And the doctors, they don't have an investment in this community like the people that are here. We've got Hilo or Hawaii Community College that puts out nurses. We got University of Hilo that puts off nurses. Why are those nurses not coming and working here at Hilo Hospital? I don't know why. I don't have the answer to that, but I would like to see more investment in our community hospital so that we can grow our own physicians, grow our own nurses, and get our ohana taking care of our ohana, right? The last thing I'd like to see is the Department of Health. I would like to see them start to enforce that HRS 325 law. And again, we'll talk about in a minute about what needs to be changed on that. I would like to see better education and in preventing. I think they do a good job preventing, but they're really not consulting with the survivors, with people like, I know Shazi from Stop Rat Lungworm Disease. And I just got to say, I'm wearing her Stop Rat Lungworm Disease shirt. So look her up. She's on YouTube and Facebook, but she has been in this fight for a very long time, trying to get change. And she's trying to work with the Department of Health to change the wording from tingly to burning skin, or, the needles or whatever people are experiencing. So I'd really like to see the Department of Health working more in collaboration with our community. There's an advisory group that they're supposed to be working with. They're supposed to meet once every quarter. Shazi has asked them. The first quarter, they didn't meet with them. The second quarter, they didn't meet with them this year. And we're in the third quarter, and the advisory group still has not met with Shazi. Sorry, Shazi, I'm putting you out there, but that's the way it is. So I'd love to see that more collaboration. The other part I'd love to see is more information out there about what you do when you get rat lungworm. What happens? What are the real symptoms? There could be a whole campaign about that. And, even, other people have talked about, when you get on the airplane, because this doesn't affect just our ohana here. This affects visitors coming in that are eating our food and eating, stuff from here. When you go on the airplane and they teach you about the coral, don't step on the coral, things like that. Why can't they be teaching about rat lungworm? And I know it's like, we don't want to scare the community, but I believe that we can do it in a way that informs them and educates them without scaring them, right? So the more we're informed, and that's what her t-shirt says, education is the only prevention. The more we educate our community, the more we'll be in the know. So that's what I'd like to see. And I'd also like to see in our community is I don't want people to be in fear of going to the hospital. I want families to be confident going into our Hilo hospital. I want to be able to have Hilo hospital be like the place where it's like, wow, you've got rat lungworm, you go there. They're going to take care of you. We can change this whole image of the hospital, not just on rat lung, but with other things, not just by us, but the hospital has to change it from the inside out, and I would love to see our community, be more geared towards trusting our hospital in every aspect. I also want to instill some hope in the community. And I'm going to say this, a lot of people don't know this, but on Oahu, there's a hospital called Tripler. It's a military hospital. Back in the day, it used to be called Crippler. And that's because there are people, you go in there to get your right leg worked on and you come out with your left leg worked on. It was called Crippler for a reason. It was tore back from the ground up. And I go to Tripler. I don't know what happened in the day, but I know what happens to Tripler now. Tripler is an amazing hospital. In fact, we'd be traveling on the mainland. I would fly back just to go to Tripler because it is an absolutely amazing hospital. Whatever they did to change it from Crippler to Tripler was from like the deep down, guts of the soul of that hospital, changed it. And it is an amazing hospital. And I look at Hilo Hospital, not as a crippler, it's, but it doesn't have a very good image. The Hilo Hospital can change that image. If Tripler could do it, maybe we get the guys from Tripler coming over here to change it. If Tripler can change their wording from Crippler into, Tripler where everybody, loves that hospital, then Hilo Hospital can do the same thing. And we could be all proud and feel safe going into Hilo Hospital.
I agree. I think we could be that success story too. I mean, I think it's not just the doctors at the ER. I think the community health centers, you know what I mean? I think it's the doctors, pretty much the entire network needs to know what's really happening with rat lungworm and really all infectious diseases.
Right. It's not just Hilo Hospital. This extends out to all the hospitals on how they handle rat lungworm and what they do in their own. Yeah.
So that brings us, yes. So we have a lot of hope now after talking about all the problems. So I love that. So what can we do right now? What are your thoughts for immediate actions?
Litigation and legislation takes time. I reached out to Senator Joy San Buenaventura, and we actually got on a Zoom meeting. What I really liked about Joy is she had a good friend who had got rat lungworm. So she's very akamai on what happens and that it's a very debilitating, disease. This particular person that was her friend was really, really infected really bad. So she has a heart in that she wants to help. However, I feel like the hands are tied. And we'd come up with a couple proposals, one changing that infectious disease wording in the law so there's no way that doctors can get out. And there's no way that the DOH can go, oh, we're not gonna administer a fine because of this wording in the law. So we need to change that legislative law. We gave her several proposals on changing the law, on helping out the hospital and changing the education in the community. So she let me know that the legislative takes time and the next legislation session isn't until 2027. But I said, but right now, what can happen is you can call the hospital and you can find out if they're using a 2020 protocol. I said, why don't you just call the hospital? We can take care of that right now to help that patient who's going in the ER right now. And her email back to me, and this is just blows my mind, is if a senator calls the hospital, that the hospital has to talk to some other entity, I don't know what it is, and basically get permission to talk to the senator, which makes me mind boggled as to why our senator can't immediately call and get a question answered like, are you using the updated protocol that the Department of Health has on their website? Are you following that? But I can't even get that answer back. And I don't know if it's her hands are tied, somebody else, but it just doesn't seem right. And it doesn't seem right that these are barriers to our patient safety. You know, during COVID, it seemed like the government had a lot of control of the hospitals. They get to tell the doctors what to do whenever. But during this rat lungworm, they don't. They can't. They're sitting back waiting for the hospital to talk to whoever the hospital is going to talk to before they can talk to the senator, which to me doesn't seem right. I would like to see that changed immediately.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is true, why aren't we changing that process so that we can make sure that the community and doctors and everyone has the right information so that that just seems crazy. She's chair of Health and Human Services too.
Yes,
so
Dr.
Senator.
Joy San Buenaventura is the chair of Health and Human Services. So she's like the head in charge of all this stuff. So for her not to be able to call and get a simple answer, and just so you know, I tried to get this answer from the Department of Health. And in fact, I asked Kelly O'Leary and Emily, and I asked them when we were at that church function. I had already asked before, but nobody got back to me. In fact, Kelly's not even allowed to talk to me. I'm only allowed to talk to Sarah Kimball, which seems super weird because Kelly is our island representative. So Hydroponic Hut, who teaches education about rat lungworm, isn't allowed to talk to Kelly. Anyways, I get in front of Kelly very respectfully and very nicely. I said, hey, what happened during your what happened during your meeting with the hospital? Because her and Emily went in and talked to the head of the hospital 12 days after Allen got, or within 12 days of Allen getting out of the hospital, to talk about what had happened to Allen. And her response was, oh, I can't tell you what happened. And we routinely go in there. And I said, no, you don't you may routinely go in there, but you went in there specifically to talk about what happened to Allen. And she said, no, I didn't. I said, I have it recorded. So I sent her the recording that I have of me and Emily talking about it. And Emily saying that she went in there to talk about their 2020 protocols, but they still could not answer me back. So I have not gotten an answer from the Department of Health. I have not gotten an answer from our senator. So I would like an answer, and our community would like an answer. Is our Hilo Hospital using our 2026 protocol, which actually the 2025 protocol, but are they following the rules and regulations of HRS 325 and the guidelines of the Department of Health? That is the question that still is out there today.
I mean, I think this is probably one of the reasons why so many people are disenfranchised, because when they do have a problem, it seems like there's bureaucracy that doesn't make sense. So even if that does exist, which I'm sure it does, I'm sure there's multiple layers of people that have to be consulted, and because maybe when you meet with the senator, it's on the record, right? So that's what we have to change. I mean, that's what we're up against. Right? Because we can't keep, why do we want to keep a system that doesn't work for us?
We can't slow walk this when the patient's in the ER right now.
Exactly.
Before we slow walk this. Yep.
And I just, as someone who, I'm just going to go back to COVID, because things were rushed through during COVID. So we know it can happen. We know that things can happen and get elevated and move through. We don't need the whole world to be in crisis on the same thing for that to happen at, Hilo, Medical Center. So that's really, I think that's the bottom line, is there's already precedence for things being able to move quickly without getting approvals for conversations. So let's hope that these are the kind of changes we can see. And these are the kind of advocacy, these are the kind of people we want in office who can change actually how the system works and doesn't work. Because the law that Shazi's posted here, HB 940 HD1, Yeah, it got introduced on the January 23rd, 2025. It was introduced by Chris Todd and other folks on Island. It didn't go anywhere. Passed second reading on February 6, 2025, carried over to the 26th year, but never got any steam. This is another one of the issues I have. I don't know if Kuʻulei agrees with me on this, but like, why do we introduce bills and then don't champion them through to the end? Like, if we're, you can put out so many bills, but then you don't have the time to actually champion the ones that your community actually really needs. Like, this is an important one to appropriate funds for the lab at UH.
Which is closed down.
So, yeah. Okay, well, at least there's already a bill written. That's what I'm going to say. So Kuʻulei, look at that bill, HB 940, and that could be a bill that we want to look at moving forward because it's already written. Just probably needs to be updated for the next session. And maybe even get a companion on the Senate side. I'm going to just see here. Okay, someone's asking if there's going to be a Q&A. Hi, David. Hi, Dave.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, we're almost done. Okay, let's go. Keep going, Allison.
So what can we do to help? What is our call to action today?
Yes.
So I really think I would really like to get this webinar out there because I think it's a truth and transparency. I'd really love to get this out to the community. So if you know somebody, and it's like the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody. And so Mark Benioff, I know, he's got his name on that hospital. I'm sure he wants to get involved and help out something like this. If it takes that money to change all this, because I know they're going to say it falls down to money. Money is an easy solution. Money can be found. We can find the money. There's a lot of people that own property on these islands, really big wig billionaires. And I'm going to name them, whether you like them or not, I don't care. They are on this island. We got Mark Zuckerberg. We got Oprah Winfrey. We've got Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Mark Benioff is on this island as well. And the richest person on this planet is Elon Musk. He has plenty of money. Whoever you can get this video out or get awareness or get this stuff out to them, let them know what's happening in Hilo, Hawaii. Everybody knows Hawaii. Everybody loves Hawaii. Everybody wants to help us in Hawaii. I honestly, truly believe that. And I believe that these billionaires want to help too. I would love to see them chopping up and coming up and saying, hey, I can help Hilo Hospital. I can do this. I can donate $1 million. I can donate $1 million. I can donate $1 million. And there we go. Maybe we got $10 million to have maybe even a section where you go into the hospital and you go right to this one room when you have Rat Lungworm and they just take care of you completely. Here's where we do the lumbar punctures. Here's where we do everything like that. I don't know what needs to be done, but I know it's going to fall down to money. So if we can get this in front of other people's hands, I want to handle this. I want this to be handled in-house in the state of Hawaii. But if the state of Hawaii is not going to handle this properly, if the Governor Josh Green is not going to step up and jump into this situation and try and fix it, then we need to go federal government. We need to let the federal government know what's happening here in the beautiful state of Hawaii and what's happening to our people, because Rat Lungworm is here. I'm watching, and one good thing about us coming out with all this, I'm seeing a lot more stuff about Rat Lungworm. In fact, I saw a post on Puna Happenings of somebody who went to the grocery store and videoed an actual slug that was in their produce. And I got to give hats off to that lady who actually inspected her produce and washed it, because if she didn't inspect that produce, that one slug could have infected her entire family. And the parasitic load that is in just a tiny, tiny slug could be shared with the entire family and infect them as bad as the Allen was infected. It doesn't take much of this parasite to be able to hurt and maim our community forever. So if you can get this out to people and everybody push it out, tell people they need to watch it, they need to see this, they need to, or get your own advocacy out there. I know Shazi is doing stuff. I know other people are doing stuff. We're going to get more Rat Lungworm awareness pages out there. Whatever anybody can do personally in their own realm, write your senator, write your congressman, write, the president of the United States, write whoever you can. But we need to let them know what's happening in Hawaii, because right now, Our state is saying that we have 3 cases in Hawaii, and that's why we're not getting money. That's why Jarvi Labs has been shut down. That's why there's no interest in this at all, because it's like it's not happening. But you ask the community, you look around the community, it is happening everywhere. And I'm not going to say it's happening to everyone, but it's happening enough that everybody knows someone or someones that have got it or are dealing with the repercussions from it. So there's my call to action. Get out and help me, help you, help the community, right?
Yes, absolutely. Do you want to take questions at this point? We can try.
Yeah,
It's
I
already
can try.
4:18, but if people have questions and want to keep going, is everyone okay with that? All right, Dave, ask us your question.
Thank you so much, Allison, for this presentation. A friend of ours got Rat Lungworm a few years ago, and he's still having major problems. I think he had to move to the continent. He couldn't even live in Hawaii anymore, and even to get the treatments he needed. And I have a friend who just bought a house over there in Puna area, and she's going to have to start a garden. I go, what about Rat Lungworm? She says, oh, you just watch your vegetables. And that's just, I don't think that's adequate enough. But a couple of things. I've been involved with the Red Hill problem here, and the Department of Health it sucks. It is not doing its job. It didn't. It knew that we were contaminated by contaminated fuels, and they didn't tell us. The same thing with PFAS. They protect the Navy instead of protecting us. And what that person from the Department of Health says, I'm worried about insulting the doctors or whatever the issue was. That's unacceptable. That is not even close to being acceptable. So you can't let that go. You got to and so, the cockroaches are running around in the dark, and you got to shine a light on this, and recording this and sharing this widely. Yes, let's definitely do it. But it is a huger problem than people realize. And people think they got something else. And the doctor's saying, you got something else going on. They can suffer for years, not even knowing they've got rat lungworm. And that was going on prior to you, yes. Many years ago. People were suffering from it. And the doctor says, oh, there's no such thing. It doesn't even exist in Hawaii. And that went on for years. So you really got this Department of Health person. You can't cut them any slack at all. You've got to expose them because, they're not going to do anything unless they feel pressured. You've got to do something to let them know that you're not going to give up on it. My husband almost, who knows, I don't get died, but serious problems for the rest of his life. And how many of the people are going through this? Every day you delay not making sure that doctors know that there's aren't there other consequences for other things of doing wrong? You give too much of a drug or whatever. So this is just standard protocol. And if they don't make a mistake, then what's the big deal? And if they have made a mistake, even if you give them, just even a warning, oh my God, so no, you can't let this go. It's kind of essential. Department of Health is lousy. And Sandana Atura, she's a politician. She's looking at getting reelected. And so she plays the political game. I'm really shocked that she didn't say, well, then here, call this person, or you can do this or that. She's like, okay, I can't do anything. That's not doing your job. That's not looking out for your community. You come up with another alternative. And she's another one. Just, oh, no big deal. So you should be writing an op-ed, maybe for Civil Beat here. And for Common Dreams, it's an online national publication. So just your whole story of just, getting down to the parts that are important, or the fact that they're not doing anything, that by doing nothing, they're setting it up every day. Someone else is going to be getting sick. I thought it was all over, basically. This has been going on for, I don't know, decades, Tanya. It's been going on for a long time. And it's still going on. So really, you got to shine a light into the room and get the cockroaches to scurry away. And so anything we can do to help you. I would also suggest maybe getting a web page. If you suffer from rat lungworm or whatever, could you document and let us know what happened? Do your own, get your own documentation, And they say there's only 3, and you get like 20 people say, yeah, I got it this last year. Boom. There's more information. But anyway, anything we can do to help and support you, I really, it's terrible to see how your husband suffered and my friend suffered, but something can be done, and we got to shine a light on these guys. The only way we've got to embarrass them in public. I know it's not a matter of, I don't want to cause trouble. That's the thing. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. If someone's not doing their job and they're refusing to do their job, and that means other people every day that they don't do something, someone else is getting sick and having a terrible thing. It's going to go on for years for them. Yep. So it's kind of like you have no choice. It's like if somebody's doing something terrible in your neighborhood and you look the other way, and you don't want to say anything. I don't want to hurt his family. It's like, well, you know what? He's doing a terrible thing. So I'm sorry I didn't mean to rant.
I haven't stopped since Allen went in the hospital on February 29th. I have not stopped with this rat lungworm. My lane, and I've always told you, has been food insecurity. I've always that's what I'm passionate about. And that's the lane that I want to get back into. But I cannot let this just go away. I'm not going to let what happened to Allen happen to another community member. So, and to follow up with you, as far as Sarah from the Department of Health, the head epidemiologist, I have an ethics complaint with her. I have all these things. I have contacted Civil Beat. They're waiting to do a story. I don't know what's going on with that, but I have done everything. I'm a little bit exhausted, and this was kind of going to be, even Tanya had to convince me a little bit to do this, but this is my last kind of public thing that I'm going to do with this. I'm going to let the people and help support the people that have been in this lane for a really long time. Like Shazi has been in this lane for a really long time with Stop Rat Lungworm Disease, right? You can check her out. We're going to be working together to create webinars so that survivors can come on there, so survivors can talk to each other. And kind of like what I told people about food insecurity, I said, you do not rely on the boats coming in. You do not rely on the grocery store to get your food. You need to rely on yourself and your community. That's who's going to save you. The government is going to save you from starving. We're going to save each other. The government is not going to save us from rat lungworm. We're going to save each other. And that's why, Dave, you putting this out, people talking about it, and not let it go away, because the state has been saying there's no cases. People think it's gone away. It is not gone away. It's probably more prevalent now than it's ever been. And that is our Ohana taking care of our Ohana.
I just suggest if somebody write an op-ed for Common Dreams, because if Civil Beat won't do it, they'll start advertiser. But if you get in Common Dreams, then that'll kind of go further out. Okay,
get this
thank
out
you
to
so
somebody.
much. You're wonderful.
Yeah, get this out to somebody and have them reach out. I'll talk a little bit longer, but then that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions or want to comment?
Jacqueline, did you have your hand raised earlier? Did you get a chance to share your thoughts?
That was just a mistake. I was just wanting to react. I'm very grateful to see this group coming together to support Rat Lungworm and Allison. And thank you, Tanya and Kuʻulei. I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. Kuʻulei?
No worries. Kuʻulei.
Kuʻulei. Thank you, Kuʻulei, for both making this awareness out there. When Allen came down with Rat Lungworm, I started talking to my friends about it. I've been on the island for 11 years, and I had heard about it back then. And when Allen came down with it, I started asking people that I know about rat lungworm, and they all said, oh, it's over with. We don't have that problem anymore. And I'm absolutely appalled and heartbroken that so many people are still suffering, and it's still being perpetuated as not a problem. So I'm here to support you. I will get your number, Shazi, from Allison. I'm here in person on the Zoom, and that's all I have to offer today. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm really glad that we're making sure that people are aware that we can eat food safely. We just have to be careful.
I just want to say one thing. We started Hydroponic Hut because it was in the heart of COVID when the prices were going through the roof and there's nothing at the grocery store. We started that, and it was not to sell $3 heads of lettuce. It was always to teach the community. That was just the concept. But we did it because Allen and I love our community. We love our community. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I love our community. I love the Puna district. I love the Big Island. I love all the islands. And, you know, there are sister islands and we're all in this together. And we're doing this because Alan truly loves everybody. And if you ask people in the community about us, it's sincere. It is absolutely sincere what we're trying to do to help you with food security and help you save your life. So everything that I do, whether it's misconstrued in ways, it comes from a place of love.
Yeah, I mean, that's where passion comes from. You know what I mean? It comes from love. And that's how we take our anger, and because it comes from a place of passion, and it could still come out as anger, or it could get funneled into action. So thank you for speaking up, for sharing your, these are very personal stories, some of them. And I'm with Dave, where sometimes we do have to sometimes speaking the truth sounds like we're trying to embarrass people, but that's not what it's about. It's about shining light on things that people need to know about so that we can get better. That's literally, when your kid's in school, when you're in school and you get a D on something, you feel embarrassed. We don't need to feel shame for getting a D. We just need to try to get better. You know what I mean? So we need to change the game. We need to change the framing. We need to change the attitude about, these things, because I'm not running for office to shame anyone. I'm running for office because I want to do better, because I feel like I deserve better. My family deserves better. My neighbors deserve better. My community deserves better. We all deserve more. And Kuʻulei, you had your hand up, so I'd love to hear what you say.
No, I hate to interrupt. I hate interrupting. But just what Tanya is talking about, and kind of going back to what the introduction of our time together today. I just want to thank you so much, Allyson. I think we've done this with one or two other issues, and always there's tears. And I think it's really a strong and powerful thing to bring the root of our heart into a discussion, to really equip people to action in order to support others. And I think when I'm thinking about, it's difficult because it's always like Tanya and I, we both don't really want to run for office, but we want to serve our communities, and we believe that our communities deserve better, and we believe that we can do better, and that's why we're running. But I want to talk a little bit just briefly about the concept of opuali'i. It's a Hawaiian concept that involves the word opu. I don't know if you folks know that word, but it means stomach. And ali'i is like a chief or a leader. And to have an opuali'i, it means to really have the consciousness of an old traditional leader in Hawaii. In old times, the responsibility of the ali'i, or the politician of that time, was to make sure that resources are being allocated effectively throughout the whole district, so that everybody could eat, everybody could be well, everybody could maintain systems of sustainability. And so when I think about my role as ideally a future House Rep or Luna Maka'ainana, I think about Allen, and I think about also my other friends who are affected by rat lungworm disease, because those are our farmers. So when you think about the ways that one person is affected, and if you think about the way that one person is a farmer who is responsible to feed other people, that's a lot of folks that are being affected. And our people that are most and closest to food sustainability and food sovereignty often are the guys that get hit by these things, because we have this everyday pattern of eating the food that we raise and the food that we grow. And so this is such an important issue that, like we said in the beginning, is not a Puna issue. It's not a Hawaii Island issue. This is a global issue on food. And so I just thank you so much, Allyson, for your time. When we look at, I want to share my screen. When we look at this concept of opuali'i and having the heart of a chief, having the consciousness of a chief, we recognize that legislators, especially state legislators in the House and Senate, have a responsibility to the folks. And we know what they've been doing. They've been showing up in the Capitol, voting how they want to vote, and then not showing up in the 8 months. I think that's what most legislators have a habit of doing, at least based on what I've heard. other constituents say and share. But for Opuali'i and for people who want to serve their community in this part of the legislative session, they'll vote based on community needs. So the next time an issue like this comes up in a different district, I don't care if that person voted against what I did. If I support Allison and if I support her husband in this, and if that relates to that, I'm supporting the is your husband's name is Al, yeah, Allison?
Allen.
So are you called the Als?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So when I'm thinking about this bill that was introduced, I'm thinking about the owls of that area, and I'm voting based on my experience with my district. That's what an Opuali'i person does. They listen to testimony, they gather data to share back, they ask. I don't think everyone knows, but folks who are elected into office, they have an opportunity to ask you clarifying questions. Okay, you only had 3 minutes in your testimony. Well, I can ask, hey, you said this in your testimony. Can you share a little bit more about that? Elongating your 3 minutes, essentially. And it also, just the concept of probably the hospital or other folks are not going to listen to little old owls on the side, but maybe they'll listen if the senator calls. Hi, I'm the senator of District 3 calling the Department of Health. I have a question. So Opuali'i, or folks who are conscious of our communities' needs when they're in office, they'll do this. Like, these are the ways that Tanya and I want to serve in office. And there's a lot of us that are running for office this year that care about our communities like this, because we're part of our communities like this. When it comes to the other 8 months, we regularly attend community meetings or send someone in order to attend and send the information back. We keep our community updated with state resources and other ways that they can solve the problems that they talk about on a regular basis. We host civic education workshops with meals. I don't think people know that legislators are given like $16,000 a year to help with their works, including to feed their constituents. And so Tanya and I want the job so bad. We're like, we can host so many community workshops to educate our folks on how to engage civically, how to engage with the ledge. And we also intend to support constituents using all our available resources, including time and talents and skills and efforts. I think I can't remember the person. I think it was Dave. Dave was talking about how, some folks, they're just like, oh, sorry, I can't help you. Sorry, I can't help you with that. That's not what Opuali'i do. Folks who are conscious and have hearts of service for their people say, okay, you know what? I don't think this is something that I can do right now because, oh, hey, the legislative session has ended. But let me see if I can call the Department of Health, or let me see if I can go to the hospital and ask them what procedures they use, how to figure that out. There's a way to be active and to support your constituents without that goes beyond what the job description expresses. And so you folks and we all deserve those kinds of leaders, not just in office, but like in our communities, because we are those kinds of leaders in our communities and in our homes. And so all of my aloha goes to you, Allison, and all of you folks who have joined our time together today. Shazi, I see that your hand is up. Did you have a thought to share?
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, first of all, I just want to give so much gratitude. Thank you so much for having this webinar and speaking about this topic and taking action. I really appreciate that so much. And I also just wanted to share with everyone that I collaborated and worked on a paper with Dr. John Jacobs, who was working with the Jarvi lab, the Rat Lungworm lab, before it shut down. And the paper has been in reviews, and it was supposed to be published June or July, but here we are in July. And this paper is something that I was screaming about for years, asking these researchers and scientists, like, it's great you study snails and slugs, but what about the humans? What about us, right? We're the accidental host, supposedly, like, what about us? And so John called me one day and he said, Shazi, like, I really want to put this paper together and I need your help. And I can't do it without you. And I said, well, of course I'm going to do it, John, because this is what I've been, talking about for years. And at my survivors groups that I used to run, So I'm very proud of the paper, and when it is released, I saw a little bit of it at a conference earlier this year. Um, the paper is about survivors and what we go through long term, and this will be a good tool to help advocate for more funding, because part of the cycle is if you don't have case counts and you don't have survivors' experiences, you can't ask for funding. And then there's this loop that, or this gap or this lie that there's no problem. And that really is the problem, is that we need more people to speak up and more survivors to come forward and do our own case counts, honestly. And if you folks were interested in doing something like that, I would love to collaborate and make our own case count chart just so that we can counter the Department of Health. Because, and I will tell you what, too, I have asked them repeatedly for the past 6 months, almost 7 months now, where is our meeting? Our Hawaii Rat Lungworm Disease Advisory Committee meeting. Where is that meeting at? We had it scheduled for Martin Luther King Day. They canceled it. It's been canceled. It was blamed on the legislature. Dr. Kimball keeps ignoring my emails. Then I ask Kelly O'Leary. Then I ask Dr. John Coleman. Why is this meeting not happening? And by the way, can we talk about case counts? And I get nothing back. Every time I ask them, can we bring up case counts? Can we talk about that? Because that's really important to me. Like, we really need some documentation. And they just ignore me as much as possible. And I know why they're ignoring me, but it's got to stop. So anyway, this paper, once it's published, and it will be published, I believe, in Parasitology magazine, but I could be wrong about that because I have brain damage from rat lungworm disease myself. But it's going to come out soon, and this will be a wonderful tool to have as reference as to how harmful this disease is. So I just want to give you all a little bit of hope that there is, the Jarvi lab was shut down on purpose. It was intentional, and it should still be open. And the new guy, I don't know if you know, John Arwara. He works at the biology department. He was given the Jarvi lab, and he's completely overwhelmed because now he's doing like 2 jobs, and he doesn't know how he's going to interact with the community for rat lungworm. And I don't think he's going to do as much outreach with the community. But I could be wrong. So if anybody knows John at the biology department at Hilo, I've called him and checked in with him. I can email you, Tanya, his name and his email address. But he would be another good reference to connect with and to reach out. So yeah, those are just some things I wanted to share with the group. And thank you, Allison, for speaking up and not stopping. And thank you all for doing what you do. Thank you so much.
And who had the idea to host maybe a website? Because maybe that's something we can work on. Like, I mean, I have a campaign website, so we can just dedicate part of that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, I'm working on part of my awareness campaign for this year. I have a lot that I'm working on. I do have intention to have a website on there and to have a case counter and to have an experience section. And if anybody would like to help me, I'm over here struggling as a rat lungworm survivor, and I'm not on disability, and I'm hustling every day, and I have so much pain that I suffer with, and doctor's appointments that are never ending because the pain never stops, the neurological symptoms never stop, and actually things get worse the older you get for a lot of survivors, which is, again, not talked about. Everybody thinks this disease ends once you get dewormed, which is not true at all. So yeah, if anybody does want to participate or collaborate, I am open to that as well. And yes, I will be sending more information out, hopefully in August, to gather more survivors. And I did just start a new Stop Rat Lungworm Disease Survivors group, because there's a couple pages on Facebook, awareness groups, but nobody has run a survivors group. Hilo Medical Center started one, and then ironically enough, they shut it down during COVID because it wasn't important anymore. And then they offered it to me to take over. And so I asked other people in the community to take over. Nobody thought it was important. Nobody wanted to do it. So I ended up doing it for a few years until 2023 when I had another seizure. And I became even more, I have more brain injury than I had originally, which is not cool. And so it's taken me a while to like get back on track. And I also had some other personal stuff go on in my family. So now I'm back and I'm present and I'm working every day as hard as I can for free. So yeah, I am open to collaboration, but having a case count, thank you, Allison, for your support. Having a case count, some kind of grid that shows the prevalence, and it's not sponsored by the Department of Health. And I believe all survivors, you know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. I'm not gonna, say I don't believe you got it, because we survivors speak the same language. So when I talk to another survivor, like we know our symptoms we use the same words to describe what's going on. We have the same feelings, the same emotions, right? And people who don't have this disease just don't have that. And it's scientists and researchers just don't have that same feeling. They don't really understand. And like Dave, the guy you said, oh, I moved to Puna, I'm just going to wash my lettuce, I'll be cool. That's not really like people. I know survivors who have washed their lettuce 5 times and soaked it, and they know about this disease and they still ended up getting it. So there's a lot to still learn, and there's a lot that should be still researched. And somebody should open back up the Jarvi lab under a different name, and there should be more. It shouldn't have been allowed to die. And it was part of the corruption that happens in Hawaii. And it really sucks. And I'm not happy about it. And I haven't been happy about it for a long time. But I'm very happy for all of you. So thank you for making a difference. And I know that we can do that this year. I know that we can make things happen. So thank you all. And yes, Allison, just bravo. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, Shazi, like, if you're going to have a page with case counts, there should also be a section for like calls to action, so that there's one place for people to get the information. And I can help with some of those calls to actions as well. And even like maybe some of the technical side, or finding someone to host it, we can look at that.
Okay, well, I do want to hook it up because I have social medias, Stop Rat Lungworm Disease. And then I also started a TikTok shop where I have the t-shirts that I've made. Allison and Allen are my biggest promoters because, and I have a few other people on island because I really want these shirts walking around everywhere. I want to go to the farmer's market and see people wearing these shirts. I want the conversation to be happening. And I also have magnets you can stick on the back of your truck. You can put it on your refrigerator, so I just really want people to keep talking about this and then not slacking, not thinking, because that's how I got sick, right? Is just
stickers too. Can we get stickers?
I do have stickers. I have everything. Yes.
I will buy stickers.
Stop Rat Lungworm Disease at TikTok. And then my shop is on there, and I will be spreading that and sharing that. And one more thing is I'm also connected into the International Angiostrongylitis and Angiostrongylitis Alliance, which is a global network of researchers and scientists focused on this disease. And I was asked to do a presentation this fall. And I'm going to do that as well, even though I'm a little scared, because it is on a global scale. So that's coming up also. So this issue is not just in Hawaii. It's global. It's a global emerging disease. And yes, some of us would like everything to move faster and quicker and be better quicker, but we also do have to understand this is an emerging disease, and systems are not set up in place. But they could very well be easily set up in place, right? And Hawaii has the opportunity, and has had the opportunity since 1958, to be the leader in this research and in this movement to spread awareness and to keep people safe. Because right now it's from California all the way to Florida. It's all along the southern United States. It's up the Mississippi River. I'm pretty sure it's in New York. I haven't got confirmation yet. It's in Tennessee. I haven't got confirmation yet. I'm still trying to get a hold of these researchers in Washington and Oregon because they have wetness and slug populations. So I mean, it's spreading. It's spreading and it's not going to stop. So I look at this as a giant opportunity for Hawaii to really shine in this area and to be the leaders of education and awareness. And I have been advocating as well for a clinic, like Allison mentioned. I brought it up to Dr. Jarvi. I brought it up to Department of Health. I've brought it up to the PR person at Hilo Medical Center and asked if she would put me in touch with Benioff, and they just never gave me his phone number, and nobody ever got back to me because that's how people roll. So unfortunately, I have tried my hardest because, you know, we have a tuberculosis clinic in Kalihi on Oahu, right? Everybody knows that? There's a TB clinic. Why can we not have a rat lungworm clinic? Like, it blows my mind.
In the epicenter of the disease.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. So that's really what should be happening. And then beyond that, I'm focused on long-term care, post-deworming and long-term treatment, because that also is important, as we all know, if you've survived this disease. It doesn't end at deworming. It doesn't end when they kick you out of the hospital. It goes on for your entire life, all these neurological issues. So yeah, we need more help. So yeah, thank you.
Or who was first? Jack, maybe?
I think Dave was first.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, just real quick. The Department of Health is affected by a couple things. One is politics, and the other is tourism. You know, they don't want the tourists to know that rat lungworm's a problem here. So if we put it out there, then like, oh, the tourists won't want to go to Hawaii Island. And this Department of Health is just so, I don't want to say corrupt, but this has been going on for decades. My wife, Sherry Pollack, she discovered there might be mercury in fish. You know, she's not a fish eater, and it was on her boss's desk, a little memo. And it turns out that the head of the Department of Health knew this for years and hadn't said anything about it. So Sherry and the new Department of Health doctor, they both like, whoa, let's do a sample. So they started doing hair samples and finding out how much mercury is in pregnant women's bloodstream. And from eating all the big fish, it's really a big problem. But the Department of Health knew for years that there was a problem, but they didn't want to upset people about not eating fish or upsetting the fishing industry. So I think it's really important that that's in the back of our heads, that they're not on our side. And so we've got to get them on our side. And the only way to get them on our side is to like expose them. The other quick thing is you just did this great presentation, Allison. I hate to say AI, but I think that what you all just did can just be typed out, right? And then I'd be very happy to edit it for you. I mean, you've already done 90% of the work. We can help you edit it and then make that into an op-ed or whatever. But you kind of already done it. So, but anyway, I think make a transcript so we can then share that and make it something bigger. And yeah, we definitely need a website where people can go on and say, yes, I got it, and I'm still fighting it, and nothing's happened. And who knows? Who knows how many hundreds of people actually have it? Yeah.
Help each other.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Dave, have you seen the folder that we shared about at the beginning of this call?
No.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat. It's just tinyurl.com/engagehi. And it'll take you to a community concerns folder. If you look in the Puna, there's a Puna folder that'll have a rat lungworm folder in it. And the kind of not script, it's not a script, but a lot of the points that Allison was sharing today are written out there. So if you wanted to take a shot at an op-ed with that information, I think that would be a wonderfully supportive.
Yeah, I can write it with you too, Dave.
Okay. Yeah.
You can always get a hold of me through Tanya and Kuʻulei. Yeah. I'm always available to help with anything when it comes to this stuff.
Same here, Dave.
Yeah, well, your personal, you I can write it, but you said your personal experience is much more powerful. That's why I said if we can get the transcript of the things you've said, your quotes are knock it out of the ballpark. But yeah, okay, great. Let's work on this together. Yeah.
And I just got to say, this whole thing happened to Allen. Sometimes we're like, why did it happen to us? And it happened to Allen from Hydroponic Hut. And obviously to me through him for a reason. This was not for not a reason. And whatever you believe in, I'm telling you, the universe had this happen to us for a reason because they knew what we would do with it. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good for everyone.
We all have a purpose in life, and this is one of your main purposes, right?
Thank you folks so much. Jacqueline, I see your hand.
I put a note in the messages, but I wanted to make sure that Shazi saw it. I'm a retired webmaster, and I put my phone number in the messages there where you can grab it. And I would be glad to assist getting a website out there however you need it, and then linking it to your TikToks and all the existing things that are there. And I'm sorry, last year I tried to de-Google my life. And I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do that, but it's not easy to de-Google your life. So I can't go to Google to get those documents comfortably, but I have friends who can get them for me if they're readily accessible to be duplicated elsewhere.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I will call you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Eileen, I see your hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I like that idea of de-Googling. Anyway, I've been in this for a long time as well. I can't even count how many close friends I know who have contracted rat lungworm from the very first cases in the beginning of the 2000s. And I did work with Dr. Jarvi when I was on council previously, and I am running for county council again for District 4, which is, the epicenter for this particular disease. Also, as executive director of Malamo Puna, we were instrumental in bringing the 6th International Rat Lung Conference to Hilo. It was a 3-day conference back in 2020. And it was amazing, all of the papers that were presented. And I thought at that point that we were really getting some traction because in, 15 years earlier and throughout that decade, it was being dismissed by the Department of Health. I actually had Department of Health come before the county council to answer questions. And they kept responding, well, that's above my pay grade. They wouldn't send, at the time, Sarah Parks was the head of the division dealing with it at Department of Health. They didn't bring her over. They just brought some underlings who couldn't answer any questions. And I am just appalled at the way our medical system has treated this problem. As Shazi said, it has extended itself to the southern U.S. and it will spread further. This is a disease that is very good at adapting. And in fact, the viral loads that we have here in Hawaii were much greater than anything that was originally seen. This came from China, Cantonesis, Angiostrongylis cantonesis. The viral loads that we observed here in Hawaii were much higher than anything that happened in Asia prior. So it's becoming a more virulent disease even and spreading rapidly. So bringing attention to this, and it is hard. We didn't get any attention to until a tourist couple on Maui contracted it, and suddenly the state started to look at it and decide that it wasn't just a lifestyle disease from Puna, meaning we live weird here in Puna, but a real problem that could be a deterrent to our main economic driver of tourism. So I would like to commit, if I do get in office, and that's an if at this point, we have an election coming up, to help you guys elevate this in any way that I possibly can. County is different than state, but we can at least write resolutions urging action. And given that Hilo Hospital is going to be seeing more and more cases of this sort, I really want to see that protocol updated immediately because it is critical that treatment is received in the first couple weeks. And like Allison said, the symptom of, I don't know, broken glass, however you want to describe it. I had one friend describe it as if there were little worms climbing up his arms, heading for his brain stem. That's what he experienced. And we used to have, as Shazi said, a group that the hospital put together, Elena Kabatu, of rat lungworm survivors. So we could begin to see how people acquired it and what protocols may help for the long-term care of people who have had rat lung. And that was disbanded and needs to be reorganized with the hospital in mind, as well as all of the survivors. So there's a lot we can do to bring attention to it locally, but we need to bring attention to it globally. So, Shazi, you said you were invited to speak. I don't know where that's going to be, but go for it, girl. And if that's going to be hard for you to manage financially, then we need to know that and raise money, GoFundMe or whatever. And if I'm in council, I can pass contingency funding to this effort and try and get things a little more organized and get us going. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Eileen. I think I remember meeting you at the 2020 conference. And the lecture I will be speaking at will be online. It will be a webinar in different regions across the world. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Let me know. Yeah, send out that Zoom link.
Send out that link.
Thank you,
I will.
Eileen. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Eileen has been such, in her Malama Opuna, has been such a supporter of hydroponic hut in our food movement, because food insecurity is at the base of Malama Opuna. And to know that you're on board with this, Eileen, it's amazing. I wouldn't expect anything less. So thank you.
Yeah. And it's not only humans that get it, guys. Animals get this disease as well. And I am a big animal advocate as well. So cats don't get it, Tanya, but dogs do.
Eileen, can you put your number in the chat so we can connect, please?
I'm a little I'm having a hard time. I don't know why, but my phone is being funky. Tanya can give you my number.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I think, how do you feel, Allison?
I feel good. You know, I don't even know what I said because that's the way I talk. But I just feel like, you know, there's nothing we can do about what happened to Allen. What happened to Allen happened to Allen. But there's something we can do about the next guy. There's something we can do about your neighbor, your loved ones. There's something we can do right now. And a lot of things have been said. And I really just think, you know, if we just focus on the community taking charge of these advocacy groups, the different groups that are doing stuff, I think that's where we are going to do best, is if the community takes care. And if we can, you know, put the government to task at things and the hospital at task at things, that'll be great. But ultimately, food security starts in your community, ends in your community. Same thing with rat lungworm.
That's great. So true.
Well, thank you folks so much. I'm so grateful, and I wanted to remind everyone that a recording of this webinar will be available at our YouTube playlist, along with the other civic engagement recordings that we've done. I'm so grateful, and that folder that I shared earlier, which is just tinyurl.com/engagehi, also has PDF references to a lot of the things that we've discussed on this webinar today. And I'm just so grateful for you, Allison and Al, and I'm grateful because you're right. This definitely happened to you, specifically you, for a reason. I think anyone else might have just been like, okay, well, at least we made it out of that, and stopped with the awareness and stopped with the, you know, with the accountability. And I think there are a lot of more people that will be helped because of your folks' works. So I thank you for your resilience and your strength in that. Tanya, do you have anything else before we close today?
I just want to thank everyone for joining. Please share the video widely in the groups. We all have different circles of influence, and we need to get this information out as soon as possible. And I look forward to convening at another time to create a website, or however we can all help and pitch in like, let's do it. And we'll definitely get some more calls to actions out as they occur. So please, everybody on this group obviously is of the same mindset regarding this horrible disease. So mahalo, mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo. Allyson, anything from you? Anything we can do?
No, but as our slogan says with Hydroponic Hut, let's grow Hawaii together. Not just our food, us. So
Yeah.
Us. I love that. Well, this has been a wonderful time. I thank you folks so much. And I'm going to stop the recording now. Stop recording.